The sun in the hardworking sign of Virgo is annually the backstory for Labor Day and for the September harvest. Why? Because, well, hardworking Virgo is practical, down to earth, and really could be CEO of the whole universe. So we get things done and we also get organized. I'm Judith Royal, an archetypal astrologer, and this is your astrology weather forecast for the week of September 2nd through the 8th, 2019. So the first 2 weeks of September, we're still feeling very grounded. We've got our lightning rod planted firmly in the earth, and we're putting practical feet on our dreams. And you're getting a lot of help to do this now for a couple of reasons. One I already alluded to, which is that the sun in Virgo is the backstory here for Labor Day and for the harvest. But, sometimes Virgo can overdo it. And that's the setup right now because of the 9 celestial lights we talk about in astrology. 7 of the 9 are in earth signs, so giving that earth Virgo lots of companionship that could make her really overdo it. And when Virgo overdoes it, we get this version of picky perfectionism, right? It's our challenge now and through to September 23rd, to see through the trees to the forest. So this week we have, because of that big tilt, in other words, 7 earth sign planets, and 2 sort of hanging out in other elements, but it brings us these mashup days, which this week will be Tuesday, the 3rd of September, Friday the 6th, and Sunday the 8th. And the reason we're having these pileups on these particular days, and also then the opposite will be true, we have leaner days in between. But the pileup of all of these planets in Earth means that when there is an interaction among them, among their orbits, from the perspective of us on Earth, then all of those Earth signs are aspected sort of all at once. And remember, the moon is the trigger for some of those big aspects. The moon, of course, is our up-close and personal dance partner as we're whirling around the universe and whirling around the sun. And so she gives us, when she interacts with another planet, she gives us right in our here and now some event or experience that tells us what those great big planets really are doing. So in addition to the moon as a trigger, and I'm going to walk you through that, the other outliers are fire and water, because Jupiter, that big guy who's generous but really has no boundaries whatsoever, and Neptune, who for different reasons also has no boundaries, it just flows like the ocean, they are going to step in with some dissonant resonance, as well as occasionally the trine or the harmonious ones. So let's look at Monday, Labor Day, when we start the week with the moon in the air sign of Libra. When the moon is in any air sign, but especially Libra, we have this tendency to want to intellectualize our feelings and emotions. But Libra also helps us on that emotional, intuitive level, add the light of reason to what we're feeling so that we can step back and by changing what we think, change what we feel. Although Monday is one of those days that I will say are quiet, there isn't a pile up on Monday, but it does have some noise to it which is going to take us on a deep dive into that transformational underworld of Pluto. And there on Monday, we get encouraged, let's say, to excavate some hidden unconscious power struggles. Perhaps in our life there are power struggles. They can also be power struggles just within us. But we will want to bring them to the light of reason. You'll probably feel something like you're playing a cosmic game of seesaw, or that it's inside yourself, up and down and out of balance, because the earth signs are going to win, right? There's no question, because they are so heavily weighted and out of balance. Those four elements are then out of balance: fire, earth, air, and water. Then on Tuesday, one of the mashup days, the moon in watery Scorpio is going to make 6 different aspects with other planets. So those are lots of triggers, all on Mars Day, which is always the day of more action and more aggression. With one exception, the moon is triggering lovely interactions because it's a water sign with all of those earth signs. So they are compatible and easy to get things accomplished on Tuesday because of that. However, we have 3 other aspects that day, triggers, that are not from the moon, but from Mercury, first of all, who is going to pair up with Mars, who is in Virgo. Both of them are in Virgo. And that means you're going to be, it's a great day for talking, for debate, for making yourself perhaps understood, if you can slow down enough to do that. And also we have the Sun in Virgo conjuncting the same Mercury. So inboxes are full. It's like my son, when I try to leave him a message, it's always full, right? And so we have a little bit more ideas, messages, communications than we really can deal with all in one day. But it does end with a lovely spiritual note, so we pause in peace, act in awareness. Then Wednesday is one of the quiet days, and it doesn't really make even any noise, but it is the time, actually the only time in all of this year, that Venus will be exactly opposite visionary Neptune. So this puts our imaginations sort of wild in the sense that we can go over the top with it and build some castles in the air. I don't think we're going to have too much trouble because we have all that earth for grounding, but just keep it in mind. Then Thursday, the moon is in fiery Sagittarius, and Thursday is again relatively quiet, but it is also a day that you might get angry easily. However, your mind gets very clear, especially for details, on Thursday. Then Friday, of course, is wow. The sun is still in fiery Sagittarius, so remember the outliers that are going to trigger all of those Earth planets will be fire. So we have now the moon in fire and Jupiter in fire. So the moon aspects and runs into Jupiter in the wee hours of Friday morning. Hope you're probably still asleep. But also, so what that does is give you incredible optimism. You're just going to wake up singing on Friday morning, perhaps. We'll try it. But then the moon also is squaring, making an internal stress with the messengers, the communications, with Neptune, with your imagination, with Venus, with your heart. And the overall challenge with that is that our boundless optimism, courtesy of, among others, Jupiter, if we take that much optimism into some of our relationships, or worse, our bank accounts, our budgets, then we could get ourselves into some big trouble, because we're going to overestimate what we can, in truth, accomplish. So if you are an earth or a water sign, you'll be actually better off, because you will be able to work at a slower pace. But for fire and air signs, that's combustion. And so you may not be willing to stop long enough. So you end up doing something impulsive that you might regret then later. Then Saturday rolls in, one of the quieter days, although the moon will be in earthy Capricorn, and so is eventually going to aspect every one of those other Earth planets. But that's going to actually be in effect on Sunday. But Saturday, the 7th of September, we do have an interesting event, because it is the first time, and actually the only time this year, that Messenger Mercury will be exactly 180 degrees opposite that visionary imagination planet, Neptune. And when there's an opposition like that with our thinking, what that often can be is deception, that you may notice people, including yourself, are more manipulative rather than direct in getting what they want. And this ongoing problem that we're facing in America, or really all over the world, about lying is going to come to the forefront. We get it triggered on Saturday and Sunday, but of course it is the overarching challenge for all of this year. What we need, of course, and what Virgo always helps with, is keeping our heads on straight. And let me offer you a quote from Sam Harris in his book on lying, which is marvelous, by the way. He says, "The lies of the powerful lead us to distrust government and corporations. The lies of the weak make us callous towards the suffering of others. The lies of conspiracy theorists raise doubts about the honesty of whistleblowers, even when they are telling the truth. Lies are the social equivalent of toxic waste. Everyone is potentially harmed by their spread." In your personal life, the way that is so applicable is that lying is essentially a way to say, I'm not going to cooperate with you, and therefore I'm not going to have a loving relationship with you. So let's be vigilant about the way in which we are seeing and solving problems, because remember, everything's in our perception. And the ego versus your spirit, your love, the ego believes that in order to solve any conflict, it must be through the process of fragmentation. So in other words, separate out the trees and then try to understand what the forest is, right? So if you're vigilant with that in your own life and your own self, your own personal relationships, then you're also doing that for everyone in the world, because what affects one of us affects all of us. An affirmation I love to use along these lines from A Course in Miracles says, "Nothing you undertake with certainty of purpose and high resolve." I hope you will take the time on Sunday to ground that in, or repeat for yourself an affirmation that works for you. because Sunday, which is also Grandparents' Day, is loaded with 9 aspects that are particularly from the triggering of that moon in Capricorn. So we get a lot of harmony from Venus and Mars that day. So relationships can be brought back onto an even keel if they were off. And also, we're picking up some help with that organizing our lives and being CEO of our own personal world. We get also a little friendly wink to our fantasies, knowing that our daydreams, when we put behind them the power of our desire, become real and manifest as happy dreams. We get a little bit of that overdo it. Remember, picky perfectionism also coming in on Sunday. However, the overall energy and resonance of that time with Virgo helps us make some deep discoveries with the help of the Lord of the Underworld. In other words, with the help of stopping long enough to listen to what our unconscious mind is trying to show us, then we can literally excavate that underworld and bring up treasure, like the peace of mind that comes from knowing that you are in the exact right place at the exact right time. And everyone in your life, even in the world stage, is playing their part perfectly. Because as Shakespeare told us way back when, all the world's a stage and we're but actors on it. And you, however, are the writer and director for your own play. All any of us need to do is pay attention to our reactions to people and events, because that's what tells us what's going on in our mind, where we can just by fatigue and habit go completely unconscious to who we truly are. I'll give you an example. Last week I was reading those headlines about the fires in the Amazon, and it got me thinking about all of this destruction of our forests as though it was a bad thing. And I was getting a little self-righteous about the whole thing. And I remembered, I was shown actually by my angel, a past event where I was dating this guy who he just was obsessed. It was his hobby, which is always a nice thing, but his hobby was railroads. And he was from the Pacific Northwest, so he had collected all these photos, books, tons of stuff about those flatbed rail cars loaded with logs. And at first, I was sitting there all, acting interested. And then I started to get this very uneasy feeling when my mind did start to put together these pieces that I was watching and in a way okay with, happy with, or pretending that. I was watching the systematic destruction of whole forests, of large, majestic, beautiful trees, without any thought to what does this do to the forest as a whole. When I find I'm caught in the fears of a memory like that, or I look at a headline news, lies probably, but in any case, selling fear, and of course then I get anxious in my mood. So what I can do always works for me, but may not for you, but you'll find your own version, is music. So I have a playlist that I put together, and I just call it Happy Songs. And one of those I think was really pertinent, and I was listening to several times this week. And it's from 1985 when the most talented of all of our singers and musicians gathered together. It was called USA for Africa. And the album was, and the song that I was playing, We Are the World. So I double dog dare you to listen to that song, and it's on YouTube, to listen to that song without bouncing out of your seat and dancing. Because the last thing that people in the world who are troubled or sick need is for us to add more fear, worry, and anxiety to the atmosphere, right? What is needed are our thoughts of love and joy. I'll be back next week for the beautiful, it's just going to be delicious, the harvest moon. And until then, go spread your love everywhere. Bye for now.